The Archer Angle, covering the news.
More than a country, more than a shining city on a hill. The idea of America lives in each and every one of us. America lives. But a storm has gathered at our shores. A tempest that seeks to tear apart the fabric of our nation. It seeks nothing less than the wanton destruction of this great nation of men and women. It seeks to rip out, erase, and supplant the very foundations of practicality and reason. It seeks to erase us. We know this enemy. They have existed throughout time, and now they have come for us. And they have come for our children. We watched the clouds coalesce and gather. We watched them form for decades from the distance as they approached our borders. We heard the clap of thunder echo in our minds and rattle down through the halls of our capitals. We have, most of us, become complacent, unaware, and disengaged while the darkness grew and unfolded around us. Slowly, then all at once. This threat is real. What we face is a hurricane of deceit and moral decay with the goal of absolute power. We face a true battle, a hurricane of deceit and moral decay with the goal, if we stand by and do absolute power, will triumph. We face a true battle, a hurricane of deceit is not our fate. We are the great men with a goal. If we stand by and do great men with a great leader. We face a leader as a hurricane this nation not and what it has given back to us. We are the great men with a goal. We stand by and do great men with a great leader. We face a leader as a hurricane this nation not and what it has given back to us. We are the great men with a great potential and great men with a great future. He seeks to make America great again. This man will guide us, but he cannot do it alone. It takes every one of us alongside him. It takes work, it takes faith, and it takes resolve. Together we can fight this storm. We can fight and we will win. Unite now. Gather alongside him. Come together for this nation. Bear the colors of red, white, and blue that are woven into the fiber of this nation, saturated with the blood of patriots that came before us. Sacrifice your time. Sacrifice your effort to rebuild this nation together. Together we can save America. The America that lives in all of us. Trump 2024.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that video for the intro. I can tell you what, I surely did. Looking forward to covering everything with you guys today. We'll give everybody a couple more minutes to start filtering through here. Let's see if we can get our chat here set up right. Make sure everything's running right. Guys, we are officially, well, I guess I should say part of why I'm wanting to make sure everything's working right. We are running concurrently on Rumble, X, Kick, and YouTube. So bear with me for a couple seconds. Trying to make sure everything's running right, because I'm more than happy to just stream exclusively on X and upload this to the other sites. The last thing I want is to be streaming to all of these and we're not producing a quality stream. And that's something that I'll just have to figure out later. So, like I said, we'll continue to let people come through. I'm going to make sure that this is going to run properly. Looks like we're freezing up a little bit. Looks like we're freezing. Now the question would be, why? If you guys are getting it as well, let me know. It may just be on my end, but I don't want it to be chopping like it looks like it is for me. See how our connection looks. Data up speed looks a little low. Well, actually, it looks really volatile. That would definitely be the culprit. A lot of this is going to have to do with getting my stream set up where I'm multi-streaming on a number of platforms. Probably going to have to tweak a handful of these, or all of them. I've tweaked X, but a lot goes into this, and it's just part of something that you have to figure out, I suppose. We're getting up to 6-8 megabytes a second, down to 400. Let's look it up. good. Well, I may just have to. I may just have to end it, truthfully, on Rumble and Kick. We'll see. Yeah, I'm not going to keep you guys waiting any longer. I'll end it on Rumble, I suppose. See if that... It could be just bandwidth, and see if that fixes it to a degree. No? Stop Kick, too. Okay, it's shot way up now. CX is the only one that I've had this issue with. Okay. Trial and error, I suppose. All right. But the main thing is I need to figure this out, why it's stuttering. Really, it's just freezing, and it's got to be happening on your all's end. I'm seeing here tremendous volatility. Most importantly, I need to get this fixed before Friday. And if you didn't know, I'll play the video here shortly, and I'll make the announcement a couple times just so that we're all going to be on the same page come Friday. But at 2 p.m. Friday, well, Eastern time, 2 p.m. Eastern time, I am having Dr. Robert Malone on the show. One, it's a tremendous honor because he's an ultra genius. He's extremely intelligent. He is a massive free speech advocate and anti-COVID-19 vaccine advocate. And mind you, he's a doctor. Keep in mind, doctors who spoke out about the vaccine back during COVID were not only blacklisted, and actually we can touch on something else tonight. One last thing, we might do this as the finale. This is just beyond shocking. If you were a doctor during COVID and you said anything negative about the COVID-19 vaccine or about where COVID came from, or you tried to offer alternatives to the mRNA, I don't like calling it the vaccine, and because it's not technically a vaccine, they had to change the terminology and what they were saying during the COVID pandemic when the COVID vaccine came out so that they could throw it under the same umbrella of modern medicine. It's a gene therapy. People would not be as receptive to something called gene therapy. So Dr. Robert Malone, why he's important is he created the mRNA technology in the COVID vaccine. That is used in the COVID vaccine. He did not and was not affiliated with the development of the vaccine. I don't believe he was at all involved in Operation Warp Speed. So he's been canceled. He's been blacklisted. He's been defamed. Essentially, he got the treatment that everyone else got that spoke out about it, i.e. Dr. Peter McCullough. So when you speak out against the pharmaceutical industrial complex, you get the wrath. And he did. So he appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast during the pandemic, and I believe it's since been removed because the only way you can watch it is by someone else having uploaded it. So huge, tremendous deal. I'm extremely excited for one, but I'm also very honored. Someone of his stature and his intelligence level is going to be just infatuating to hear speak and have a conversation with. So turn post notifications on, whatever you got to do, set a reminder on your phone, in your calendar, because it's going to be awesome. I've got a whole list of questions already lined up to ask him. If you have things that you're really interested in hearing him explain or talk about, you can send me a message, send a DM, whatever you decide. Just communicate with me what you would like to have discussed in our conversation. Friday, March 22nd at 2 p.m. Eastern. So, people will continue to filter through here. I wish I could get this to stop cutting. I think it's a little better. See, none of the other web streams were doing it, though. Only X. Might be my encoding is too high. I don't know. Yeah, none of the other websites were doing it. Only X. Oh well. My job to figure out. So, today, and I actually have something else to tell you guys. I think it would be highly valuable for you all. For those of you who have watched the show before, whether it's since the very first Archer Angle live stream or you've watched it several times. What I'm going to add to the stream is an overlay with the stories that we're going to be covering today. As you know, I always have my book, but that doesn't keep you all informed on what's next and what we are going to effectively be covering for the day. However, I'm going to incorporate that overlay as soon as possible. And we'll get right into it. If you could, share the stream, repost it, share it. It's been a really good day for Americans. I should say it's been a good day with how bad the news cycle is every day in America. For people who care about this country, it was a good day for a number of reasons, namely the Supreme Court. There are just as many bad, or a lot more actually, bad articles, bad stories, but the Supreme Court handed down a massive ruling today, effectively allowing Texas to do what the Biden administration is wanting them not to do. As you know, the Biden administration is for open borders, incentivizing a full-scale invasion, and they want nothing more than this country to be overwhelmed and its infrastructure destroyed and the American citizens to be demoralized because it doesn't matter. They're going to win this election more than likely if they're able to get the things they want passed. So our first story today is going to be about the Supreme Court. We're going to look at the ruling itself, and I think as not quite as important as the ruling, the opinions of Sotomayor and Amy Barrett. When you have a decision as important as this, when you have a decision that is so, it affects every American in this country and the future of our country, every statement made by a Supreme Court justice in these situations is extremely important and impactful. And it really gives you a great way to observe how they rule and how they would rule and will rule in other cases that specifically involve the Constitution. Following that, it's, I think, rather uncommon that there are transgender migrants, transgender aliens. I'd say it's extremely uncommon because the cultures where these people are coming from, Haiti, Venezuela, Mexico, South America, just in general, China, the mainstays of where these people are coming from in this full-scale invasion is that's not part of their culture really in having transgender people. It's hard to say really what they would be looked at in these cultures. They're so much more traditional, and they don't have, I don't believe, I haven't been there, but I don't believe they have the same indoctrination practices. Sure, the media is still owned by the same big companies, but a transgender, I digress. Transgender person was murdered today by a cartel-tied Venezuelan. These are the people in our country. These are the people getting let in by the Biden administration. Following that, we're going to cover, this could be the biggest story of the day. And if it goes anywhere, if this guy lives to tell the tale, this is a huge, huge story. Michign Sherrif claims massive voter fraud and that he has proof what that was submitted to him regarding Dominion voting machines. And if the information he was sent that he has is accurate, this is way more than damning. Following that, CDC has released a statement today, a health alert, I should say, for international travelers. Rather, it's a health alert for the United States as it relates to international travelers and measles. Now, that clever, convenient term, or the propaganda way to say it, like Elon said in his interview with Don Lemon, international travelers is just a convenient way for them to spin criminal alien, illegal alien. Following that, one of the most insane things that I've seen in a while, New York City woman arrested for changing the locks on her house because she had squatters living in it. This is in $1 million home in New York City. Arrested for trying to get people out of her family home, squatters, and changing the lock. I know, it's sick, isn't it? How could she do that? They were living there. You guys probably heard the story a couple weeks ago about the mom, the mother of a child who, it's heartbreaking because this child, this young person, a baby, who could not take care of themselves, and we're not talking like a 4-year-old, we're talking a baby, was left in their crib. I think it was a pack and play, actually. Left in their pack and play while the mother went to Puerto Rico for 2 weeks. 10 days or 2 weeks. Yeah, well, she got charged. I'm not going to tell you what she got because, I'm going to shut up. We'll see that when we get to it. Following, Trump is suing Snuffleupagus Stephanopoulos. What was it Trump called him? Anyway, Trump is suing him for defamation. If you didn't see the clip, we'll be watching it shortly. What Stephanopoulos said to, let's see here. Make sure I have this queued up for us. Oh, yeah, I do. Okay, good. Trump is suing Stephanopoulos because in an interview, or more of a conversation that he had on his program with Nancy Mace, Representative Nancy Mace, he defamed Trump in a way that only a liberal could do, because if someone else did this to a Democrat, they would be thrown in jail, the key would be thrown away, never to be seen again. He blatantly said a number of times, and Nancy, she wrecked him, one, but two, I would say she was hurt. I don't think she was really even pandering necessarily. So that clip, if you haven't seen it, it's a tough one to watch, for one, because he's a bold-faced liar and a gaslighter and a propagandist, but he's also talking to a woman, Representative Nancy Mace, who was unfortunately raped a long time ago. So It's a sensitive topic for her. She spoke out for a long time. It still affects her, she said. But we'll look at that. And the other stories we got, we're going to see if we can make it to the finale tonight. I have something lined up, but the Supreme Court and the Michign Sherrif story, we're going to spend quite a bit of time on. So we'll just hop right into it. Again, if you could share the stream, send me a message. We're doing a giveaway for a Make America Great Again hat, 45 and 47. If you haven't seen the hat, it's really badass. But two, we're trying to grow the Arch Angle. We're trying to grow. I hate to say my account. It seems very selfish, but this is something that I care tremendously about, and I care about sharing information. I care about, I guess I should say, I don't care about how people look at me. I'm thankful that so many people are awake. What we are fighting now is a war of information, where propaganda is king. The entire world is ran by the people who are pushing the propaganda. The battle is waking more people up. So I care about this deeply. I want to do a giveaway to get back to you all, something that hopefully you'll like. If you want, well, the hat's going to be badass. So share the stream. If you aren't following, follow. I appreciate everything you guys have been doing every time we've streamed. The Archer Angle, we've gotten up to an exorbitant number. So long as the information I'm presenting to you all is helpful and beneficial, I want to do a giveaway to give back. But most importantly, I'm trying to do this more and more and devote more and more time to this and, well, just in general, citizen journalism. There's a very real world where I could do this full time, and that's going to be a scary thing. So, yeah, if you could do that, send me a message, put it in the chat. I need to have some way of keeping inventory on who is actually a participant in the giveaway. So do that, please. And yeah, we'll hop right into it. So the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Tejas. A huge development on so many levels. Because if you remember, the Biden administration was effectively using the judicial system to block. They were trying to make it illegal for Texas to enforce the United States and its own constitution, which is one, criminal, and it's two, a perfect example of how anti-American this administration is and how anti-American the government is as a whole. The finale touches on that, and we can get through it relatively quickly, but we're seeing something so ridiculous by the mainstream media, especially the New York Times, who published the article stating that the deep state is actually awesome, really awesome. We love having a deep state. They used low-level government employees, like county-level employees, and effectively put them in the deep state bucket. You know, when they're talking like that and doing things as shady as that, that their back's against the wall. So I'm making sure are the streams still running well? Looks like we are. Our display capture isn't working. Let me get this loaded back up here. Alrighty. So, you know, we always try to be objective. With that, we always try to look at left-wing sources. We always look at right-wing sources, conservative news outlets, but For one, if you've ever tried to find meaningful information that's not completely ran through about the filtering process 100 times to where they can get the editor-in-chief, the editors-in-chief, and then the full go-ahead by the people in charge, it's gone through the screening process indefinitely until it is full-blown Nazi propaganda effectively. So we like looking at CNN. We like looking at the New York Times, the New York Post, Washington Post, New York Post. We can leave that out. But we like looking at these sources mainly because we want to see their perspective. Not necessarily because they're ever really right, but Supreme Court allows, and I want you guys to pay attention to the framing here. Let's get it. I'm not sure why. Our display capture isn't working. We'll add another one. No, that's not working. There we go. Second monitor. There we go. All right. Notice the terminology and the way they frame these stories. When we look at these left-wing, left-leaning liberal news outlets, notice how they frame the statements that they make. No matter how ridiculous the topic, they always have to demean the subject material, even if it's something that is so common sense, like controversial immigration law. Sure, tell me what's controversial about it. The Supreme Court on Tuesday cleared the way for Texas to immediately begin enforcing a controversial immigration law that allows state officials to arrest and detain people they suspect of entering the country illegally. Now, watch what they do here. The court's 3 liberals dissented. Legal challenges to the law are ongoing at a federal appeals court, but the decision hands a significant yet temporary win to Texas, which these liberal judges have something very specific to say, and it makes me sick, which has been battling the Biden administration over immigration policy. The court had been blocking the law from taking effect, issuing an indefinite pause on the proceedings a day earlier, which was wiped away by Tuesday's order. Senate Bill 4, signed into law by Republican Governor Greg Abbott in December, makes entering Texas illegally a state crime and allows state judges to order immigrants to be deported. Immigration enforcement generally is a function of the federal government. Well, am I crazy to think that the United States used to be the United States are instead of is? And if that doesn't make sense to you, when the country was founded, each state was a sovereign state. It was its own, it has its own. And notice how when you go to your city or your capital, there are government buildings. They're not federal government buildings, they're state government buildings. So when the United States was created, each state was its own, it had its own governing body, and it was part of the larger whole, the United States are. Notice how that phrasing works. The United States are. Now it's the United States is. One singular whole with an authoritarian federal government and massive central government that dictates and controls how the states conduct business in their state, in their border, at their southern border. Senate Bill 4, SB 4, signed into law by Republican Governor Greg Abbott in December, makes entering Texas illegally a state crime and allows state judges to order immigrants to be deported. Immigration enforcement. Oh, I read that already. The law immediately raised concerns among immigration advocates of increased racial profiling. How do you know? How would you know that they would bring in racial profiling to this? They're on. How many Americans are going to Mexico and walking across the border? Racial profiling. So you see how they frame it. This isn't politics, ladies and gentlemen. This is CNN satire. This is CNN bullshit. Racial profiling, as well as detentions and attempted deportations by state authorities in Texas, where Latinos represent 40% of the population. Well, how about they CNN politics here when, they send one guy to the border and he goes to the least trafficked part of the border on the southern border? Well, there's nobody here. What do you know? AOC goes down there. She bawls her eyes out. Like, it's the people coming across here are being hurt just as much as they are being helped by coming to America with so many drugs and so much drug trafficking, so much human trafficking, so much child trafficking. Ask these Latinos what they think about this and what they think about the illegal immigration. A federal judge in Austin had blocked the state government from implementing the law, but the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals granted a temporary stay of the lower court's decision and said the law would take effect on March 10th if the Supreme Court didn't act. A pair of emergency appeals from the Biden administration and others soon followed. Abbott on Tuesday called the court's order a positive development, but acknowledged the case will continue in the appeals court. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said Tuesday that we fundamentally disagree with the ruling. SB 4 will not only make communities in Texas less safe, it will also burden law enforcement and sow chaos and confusion at our southern border, she said in a statement. SB 4 is just another example of Republican officials politicizing the border while blocking real solutions. That the only real solution is being able to effectively protect your border. Blocking real solutions, what she's saying is hundreds of millions of dollars to Ukraine so that we can protect our southern border. It's classic political talking points and the mind games of liberals like AOC, who has virtually no support by anyone who originally liked her. She's a plant that was put in by essentially a casting agency. So we'll look here at what Amy Coney Barrett and what Sonia Sotomayor said. The Supreme Court didn't rule whether the law was unconstitutional, but said that the appeals court didn't follow the right steps when it reversed the federal judge's order blocking SB 4 from going into effect. Okay, so they're following how the legal system is supposed to work. Now, if it was up to Amy Coney Barrett and, look, Brett Kavanaugh, can't trust anyone. That puts this case in a very unusual procedure posture, Justice Amy Coney Barrett wrote in her opinion, which is joined by Justice Brett Kavanaugh. I think it unwise to invite emergency litigation in this court about whether a court of appeals abused its discretion at this preliminary step. Barrett also said that if the Fifth Circuit doesn't issue its own order soon on whether the law can take effect while the appeals court weighs SB 4's constitutionality, the case can go back to the Supreme Court, which could decide whether the law is constitutional. Meanwhile, Sotomayor, one of the three liberal justices who voted no Tuesday, said her colleagues are wrong for not continuing to block the law, writing in her dissent that the Supreme Court invites further chaos and crisis in immigration enforcement. Well, I'm just thankful that we have a period of time where Texas can do what it's capable and perfectly allowed to do under the Constitution, which is protect its citizens, the taxpayers, the citizens of Texas and the taxpayers that live there, the residents, their livelihoods, their lives, their economy, and protect its border. So we had Pismo here. If you want to go check this out, 7 of the 9 justices sided with Texas. It was actually 6. There were 3 dissenting judges. The Democrat vote laundering scheme took a hit today. So that what I was saying is it's really nice to know that at least for a period of time, we're going to have hopefully a substantially lower number compared to if things went the way of the Democrats of illegals here to vote and commit murder or commit crimes such as murder. Now, following our Supreme Court decision, tremendous win for the American people, we're looking here at In Wokeness posted this story. We've got it here as well. A transgender migrant was killed in broad daylight by a man shouting homophobic insults. The suspect is an illegal immigrant from Venezuela linked to a drug cartel, but it gets worse. The DA is declining to charge him, but it gets even worse than that. 2 days prior, he was charged with multiple felonies, including illegally having a gun. Now, is it even going to be illegal? Considering we just had legislation passed, or, well, a ruling that effectively stated that illegals could have firearms. 2 days prior, but that's not all. It gets even worse. On March 3rd, the suspect was arrested yet again. This time, he drove without a license. Guess what? He was released again. You'll hear more about this because it's a poor, innocent, transgender woman. Now, that's very hard to really decipher. Was it a man that's a woman, or a woman that's a man? It's difficult to keep up with these things. Early one mild morning last month, a transgender woman who recently migrated from Venezuela was waiting for a ride outside a little village nightclub when a driver pulled up and made an ominous remark in Spanish. Bad gay, he allegedly said before firing 3 shots at the woman. Cold-blooded murder. So this was a month ago, but we continue. This man is linked to drug cartels, or rather a singular drug cartel. It's hard to know how many, if it's just one or if there's a dozen. With the help of U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force, and how oppressive is it to have a fugitive task force after an undocumented person? Can you believe it? I mean, I think that's just so racist. Officers took him into custody February 26th as he left a courthouse in suburban Maywood. He had been arrested 2 days earlier in Austin and hit with a list of charges, including felonies for illegally possessing a gun and ammunition. So it's just a continued, this is the real bloodbath. I posted a video last night following the Supreme Court deciding that Texas couldn't enforce, or the court effectively ruled against Texas yesterday. This was reversed today. So that video, the real bloodbath, covers, I mean, this is just a consistent trend of innocent people losing their lives, namely an illegal migrant who opened fire because he was outside, drunk, shooting an AR-15. A guy came outside, and he was evidently with his family. He approached him, or at least said, hey, could you chill out for a minute? Shot and killed him and his family of 5, and a 9-year-old boy. It's just heartless, and it's just, what do you do except for protect the border? Now, that is a lot. The loss of life is never minor. It's unbelievably heartbreaking that anyone loses their life to something that would have otherwise been completely preventable. But it's something that, in the scheme of things, we have this story, which, if this goes anywhere, this is massive, 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 massive news. Because guess what? We've got people, namely the young woman who was effectively arrested for touching a table at January 6th, challenging the system in place where we know there's voter fraud. We know COVID allowed them to take mail-in voting, mail-in ballots, absentee ballots, no voter ID in many states. And then they have Dominion voting machines that they continually pushed and said, hey, this is good. They're fine. They can't be hacked. When countless hackers came and said, hey, in front of a judge, did it in front of a judge, hacked and switched votes on a Dominion voting machine. So people that are in prison to this day, people who spent years in prison because they did not trust the vote, they were led into the White House on January 6th, never committed an act of violence. They political dissidents that have been wrongfully imprisoned. Well, guess what? The evidence has been slowly coming out on a drip for the last couple of years. Really, up until this last year, we were hardly getting anything because, Trump was the one getting prosecuted, and the very institutions that were in charge and taking care of the voter fraud, voter or election interference, they were the ones who were holding and withholding evidence, and they were the ones over the trials for Trump. The same people prosecuted him. So how do you expect to get any information that you need from the people who are responsible and guilty for the very thing that you're accusing them of? Dominion voting machines, there's no question they can be hacked. They can be manipulated. So here we have from MJ Truth Ultra, frequent, honestly, on the show. He posts, he's dropping red pills frequently. A Michigan constitutional sheriff named Dar Leaf says he has evidence of criminal acts in U.S. elections in the state of Michigan and the United States, not just the state of Michigan. He has evidence of foreign nationals have accessed electronic voting machines in Michigan and other states. He has evidence that Serbian foreign nationals entered election systems while votes were being counted and prior to certification. He has evidence that Dominion hired these Serbian employees, and they said in an email they are not only able to provide background on them due to the law in Serbia. The sheriff said he has proof and is investigating multiple individuals within the U.S. who conspired with these foreign nationals who have interfered with numerous elections, including the 2020 November election. He has evidence Dominion and its affiliates directed its employees to alter or falsify the integrity of its software and hardware in its voting machines. The sheriff is investigating conspiracy crimes, wire fraud service, honest services fraud, and perjury charges, amongst other criminal acts. He has posted quite a few documents on Twitter. This is massive. What happens to the system in place? What happens to the power structure if we realize that after 4 years of potentially definitely the worst presidency, the worst administration, the most anti-American, destroy this country administration for 4 years, and we finally realized that the entire time we were right, Trump was prosecuted in political witch hunts just like during his presidency. What happens? Is Trump installed as the president? It's hard to say, but what are the people who were at January 6th challenging the system, saying the election was stolen? What happens? Exciting times, but also scary. So here, if you want, you can go see this on MJ's page. Here, the main thing I want to touch on here, this paragraph here and the first couple sentences here. My office has come into possession of evidence that foreign nationals have accessed electronic voting machines in Michigan and other states. This evidence demonstrates that electronic voting machines and let me zoom in on this for y'all. This evidence demonstrates that electronic voting machines and electronic election systems used for elections in Michigan and throughout the United States are not secure, and an immediate investigation is needed by Congress. I have evidence in my file of Serbian foreign nationals entering our election system while the votes were being counted and prior to certification. The election vendor Dominion hired these Serbian employees and disclosed in emails that they are not able to provide backgrounds on these individuals due to law in Serbia. It has only been a mere 25 years since conflict involving Serbia. Therefore, the United States has allowed a scenario where potentially Serbian military criminals are running our elections and remotely entering our election equipment. That's bad, bad, bad news. This guy needs to have a security detail. And notice the Honorable Jim Jordan. This is from Sheriff Darleaf to the Honorable Jim Jordan. I think if somebody's going to do something about it, it would be our friend Jim Jordan. But this is just, what do we expect nowadays? We expect information that, we've known, quite frankly, that it's happening. We've had evidence, all but the physical receipts we've had. And countless times we've had people come out and testify that there was widespread voter fraud. The votes stopped. They saw votes getting changed. Election irregularities and how they were counting. It was practically enough evidence to state that there would need to be an investigation into the 2020 election. What's happened? What have we come to expect? The deep state is in full control of this country, and you can see it playing out right in front of your very eyes every single day. The last 4 years has made really a mockery of America and our government, specifically because our government is effectively a face to a shadow government that really is the inner workings of our country. And practically every decision that's made in this country is for that very shadow government, the unseen hand, who makes decisions on the world stage. It's not just the United States government that is controlled by the shadow government. Next, we're going to look here at the CDC. And now this is rich. Actually, we're going to pull something up here too, real quick. We're going to see if we have an interview from Darleaf. I want to see if we can find that, because I want to hear it from him specifically. We can read that whole document. But I also want to see what Darleaf looks like. Sheriff claims prosecutor trying to usurp voting machine. Well, I'm not seeing anything, to be honest. That's a year ago. He's been... Well, he's been saying the same thing for years now. Pierce County, no. Yeah, that's unfortunate. He's on videos all over YouTube, though. And most of them are him talking about Dominion voting machines. So I would say he's probably been on a hunt for this. Sheriff Darleaf of Michigan turns out Jim Jordan. What we got? This ain't legit. All right. Following that story, that's bombshell. I would go repost that if I were you. I don't know how many people have really seen that story, but that needs to be seen. So here's where New York City is just continuing to go into the twilight zone. Every day it's something new with them. And Mayor Eric Adams, just this woman owns this house. She is arrested for changing the locks. Watch this. Oh, gotta change.
don't know the law. Yeah, there's laws. You shouldn't be trying to steal my house. Yes, you are.
How about that? A squatter standoff. A property owner confronts a group of people she says moved into her $1 million home in Queens, and our cameras were rolling as dozens of officers showed up.
Several people were taken away in handcuffs, and one of those arrested may surprise you.
Investigative reporter Dan Krauth joins us now with more on what happened. Tell us, Dan.
Well, this is a very big growing problem. I received dozens of tips from viewers about this in just the past week. I went to do what I thought was going to be a routine interview. Instead, we capture what police and property owners are dealing with on a daily basis.
I have video of you.
Who are these people? Figure out the situation. Yeah, but they're in my house, man. Relax. No.
To understand how this day ended,
We need the police right away.
with multiple 911 calls and arrests, we have to start at the beginning.
Adele, the hardest question is, how do you say your name?
We met Adele Andaloro outside the home her parents left her in Flushing, Queens. She's in the process of selling it,
No, he locked it.
but she's been locked out. She claims squatters moved in on February 6th and refused to leave.
What's it like being here knowing you can't go inside of your own home?
It's enraging. It really is.
In New York, squatters have rights after 30 days.
By the time that someone does their investigation and they do their work and their job, we'll be well over the 30 days, and this man will have stolen my home. And now she's back.
Just after wrapping up our interview, a woman showed up.
What are you doing in the house? Are you renting this house? Why are you here?
She unlocked the front door, saw our cameras, and took off.
It's open. Let's go in the house. It's open.
Adele and her daughter, with the property deed in hand, went inside.
This is my furniture. These are my curtains.
She didn't just find her belongings inside.
There's a man sleeping right there. Get out of my house.
She found two men.
How long have you lived here?
I moved in about 2 days ago.
They've called the police on me, and I've called the locksmiths. I didn't come in illegally. The door was open.
Police started interviewing neighbors and looking for documents.
Do you have something that shows that you've been here for more than 30 days?
They took the man who told me he had been renting for 2 days out in handcuffs
They got one out.
and escorted the other guy off the property.
Now you're afraid to come out.
I'm not coming out. This house is empty. This is my home. My locksmith is on the corner waiting to change my locks. And that's not fair. It's not fair that I, as the homeowner, should be having to go through this.
How you doing?
Minutes later, a locksmith showed up, but police gave her a warning before they left.
I may end up in handcuffs today if this man shows up here and says that I have illegally evicted him. I said to them, let him take me to court the way I've been told to take him to court. But today, I'm not leaving my house.
Less than 10 minutes after police left and the locks were changed, the man who claims to be the one actually leasing the house shows up.
Call the police again.
With the other guy, police took off the property.
Do you see this? This guy just literally broke down my door, broke through myself and my daughter to get in here. This guy just forced himself into my house. No, he did not. Yes, he did. No, he did. And so did you. You broke through the front door.
Officer.
The man called the police on her.
So why is it that I have to leave and he doesn't have to leave?
Because technically he can't be kicked out. We need to go to court.
They consider this a landlord-tenant issue. And by law, it has to be handled through the housing court, not with police.
If you own this house, you would not want her inside.
I don't own this.
Exactly,
Yes.
she does.
Yes, but then once again, you should know how the law works.
I do know how it works.
There's rules to the as you got to go to court and send me to civil court.
He says he signed a lease in October, but wouldn't tell us with who.
I got proof longer than that.
Show us the proof.
But who are you for me to show? I showed it to cops.
Dan with Channel 7 News. If you don't want to show it, you don't want to show it.
Proof. Come here, brother. I like that.
I would like to see it.
He didn't show me a lease.
This is a bill.
A bill for work he says he had done to the house. He didn't show police a lease either.
The police department doesn't have the lease?
No.
He's got no documentation.
Just bills.
So Adele, you're getting arrested right now?
I'm being arrested
For what?
for being in my own home.
And where's your lease?
She's fighting the house. It's not her house anymore.
My deed
That's
is
what was
current
told
and
already.
legal.
Arrested for unlawful eviction. She changed the locks on a man who claims he lives there.
So how does this all end then? When do you leave?
The way it ends is either she pays me my money that I put into the house, pay me the money, and I'll leave, or send me to court, and we deal with the judge in court. It's that simple.
It's not that simple. It's a long process. Evictions can take close to 2 years to complete.
I mean, what? This isn't even new. This is happening in a number of left-wing cities and states. I have actually something else that we need to at least look at tonight. Okay, I just saw a couple more stories that are, one, breaking and two, unbelievably shocking. But if you didn't know, well, I should say if you know who Chael Sonnen is, Chael Sonnen, former UFC fighter, Hall of Famer, excellent fighter. He's a big-time YouTuber. If you don't know who he is, there you have it. But he is actually planning on running for governor of Oregon. And he is a huge Trump supporter. He's a huge, staunch proponent of free speech and really just the Constitution. He's a common sense guy. He's a fighter. He loves Donald Trump because Donald Trump is a fighter. So check it out. Look at his platform. If you live in Oregon, it would definitely be worth looking at his platform, because if you're in Oregon, that place is ran by liberal authoritarians. And it's hardly even that the leadership is authoritarian, it's that they're owned by authoritarians. So that is happening all over the place in liberal cities. Can you imagine losing your home potentially to squatters? I don't know if you all saw the story in Oregon where a guy effectively moved in just like that, except he videoed it to, I think it was a rental that he found. As a matter of fact, he said, this is how you make $1 million. You find on Zillow or get on a website where you can see the rentals and just go stay in one. Yeah. Basically, you become property owner. And the police came when the owner came. If I'm remembering this correctly, the police came and said the police came with the owner, and the owner couldn't do anything. So I think they had to wait to get the deed, had to get it mailed or something, and it was essentially catering to lawlessness, especially going against the American tradition of law and order. All of the things that they're doing goes completely against the American tradition of law and order, a free and fair society. And we're seeing it play out rapidly. On to our next story. This one was tough because I saw this story. I have a daughter, and obviously for people who care about their family, who care about their children, this is hard for me to believe that someone could do this, but it's hard for me to believe that your child isn't the most important thing in your life, quite frankly, by a mile. When you see this little person that is, based on their genetic makeup, just a little tiny person, innocent and sweet, and man, do they love their parents. And it's amazing. Parenthood is awesome. And yes, it's difficult, but I don't understand how people can have any other opinion or outlook on their children other than it's the most important thing in their life, and it should change your life as soon as you have them. That being said, if you didn't see this story, I hate that for you, because you see the story, it makes you sick. It made me almost physically ill, especially my wife. But mother who left her 16-month-old daughter home alone while she went on a 10-day vacation. Here's where that baby got justice. Sentenced to life in prison. Good. If this was in, I think this is in, we need to figure out what state this is in. I don't want to speak out of turn, but if this was in a red state, she gets a life sentence or a death sentence. If she's in a blue state, like you saw a transgender person that was murdered, he's just, living life. He just does whatever he wants, and he gets free money, more than likely free health care. He will be living in your house soon. I hope it's none of you all, but this is the world we're living in. So 32-year-old Crystal Candelario left Detroit. There it is, Detroit. So she got life in prison anyway. Left Detroit for vacation in Puerto Rico, leaving her daughter home alone. The baby girl was found soiled with urine and feces in her playpen when Candelario finally returned. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, what the fuck is wrong with her brain? What do you think when you come home? You leave him there for 2 weeks, and you come home and you see them there. Like, oh shit, I forgot about my kid. No, she knew she left her. She'll be fine. She works part-time at Home Depot anyway. Stupid asshole. The baby Jalen died of starvation and dehydration. So she came home, and her daughter is in the playpen where she left her. Skin rotting away. Last, how long was she alive? I mean, I bet you anything that little baby was alive for 3 or 4 days. 5 days, maybe. Skin rotted, deteriorating. Her body is breaking down. The last 4 or 5 days of her life, her mom left her, and she probably was screaming bloody murder an hour after she was gone. When in court, Candelario tried being the victim and said she was suffering from depression. Yeah, well, have fun with your depression in prison, you sick fuck. What is wrong with this woman? Do we feel bad for her? Like, do you have to be a human being and look at her and her situation? And you just have to try. You can't put yourself in her shoes. It's just not possible. But you have to try to look at, that's another human. And yes, the baby she deserves to get capital punishment, quite frankly. But something is going on in that woman's head that we just don't understand. And it's probably set in. Did she go see family in Puerto Rico? I keep rebutting myself when I say these things, because it's like, no. The words can't even come to my mind because she's such a piece of shit. But at the same time, you just have to try to look at the human there and think, what would cause somebody to do that? Like a complete psychopath, like a complete mental break, and you hardly have any recollection? It's hard to say, but I'm extremely hurt about everything that happened. I'm not trying to justify my actions. But nobody knew how much I was suffering and what I was going through. Well, that doesn't matter at all. That doesn't matter at all. Because you're going through something. Yeah, you're getting to go through something. Your child, who was screaming for a week straight while you were gone after abandoning her, is never going to get to go through anything. It's just hard to fathom. Sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So I hate to say that, the ending here is watching her see, hopefully we hear the ruling here. Seeing her getting told you will never be free for the rest of your life as long as you may live. That is about the only good thing that we could see here.
Y a mi hija, Yailin.
Every day I ask forgiveness from God and from my daughter, Jaylene.
Soy una persona creyente de Dios.
I'm a person who believes in God.
Y reconozco hoy que todos y todas, muchas ocasiones, somos tentados por el enemigo.
And I recognize today that all of us are sometimes subject to the enemy.
Dios y mi hija me han perdonado.
God and my daughter have forgiven me.
I'm going to sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. On count 5, I'm going to sentence you to 8 years to run concurrent to count 1. I'm going to tell you, Crystal, this is probably one of the most difficult, horrific cases to listen to hear, and to see. And I can tell you that I appreciate the fact that the state of Ohio presented this matter in a professional way, and the defense has acted in a professional way. You have a right to appeal my sentence. Do you have the money or means to hire a lawyer at this time?
No.
All right. I'll appoint I'll appoint a lawyer to represent her on appeal. And on the endangering children, because of the Reagan-Tokes thing, it would be 8 to 12 years. That would be concurrent with the aggravated murder, which is life without parole. Is there anything else, Mr. Smith, on behalf of the defense?
Nothing further.
Anything on behalf of the defense?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. The court's adjourned.
It's just shocking that somebody could, at any point in time, think that they want to leave their child like that. It's just hard to wrap your head around. On to our next story. After that morbidly depressing piece, we're going to get on to some brighter news. Now, George Snuffleupagus, estrogen-filled cuck, pile of trash, gaslighting, media propagandist, gets wrecked. Go back. Gets wrecked by Nancy Mace because he was essentially chastising her for her political support, where it's only Trump. It's Trump, Trump, Trump. If it's not Trump, 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 it's Trump, Russia, Trump. It's constant. We know this. We've seen it for 8 years almost. And they still talk about Russia. Adam Pencilneck, Schiff, and the rest of them. Stephanopoulos will speak for himself here. Just a sick individual that she owns him, which is great. And he might have just dug his own grave. We hope that's the case. What's happened, though, is Trump has filed numerous lawsuits for defamation. And among other things, he's filed lawsuits against people in the media and the media companies. And guess what? Nothing happens because they're untouchable. No matter how much they ruin your life, I've got an excellent video, actually, that's not necessarily related to any of the stories today, but a perfect example is Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse, you all know the facts of the case. If you don't, you can't Google it. But the media went on a tirade calling him a terrorist, a white nationalist, white supremacist. You name it, and you can pretty much assume what they say about people that defend themselves that are white. So you see what they do to people, and they never get held accountable, ever. So Trump, well, I mean, hopefully we get Stephanopoulos, and he takes a huge hit. I think that remains to be seen, and it hasn't happened before. So we'll watch Nancy Mace here lied into him. It's glorious to see.
Asking you a very simple question.
And I answered it. You're shaming me for my political choices.
I'm asking you a question about why you endorse someone who's been found liable for rape.
It was not a criminal court. This was
a civil court.
It was a civil court. And by the way, she joked about the judgment and what she was going to do with all that money, and I find that offensive.
I'm asking you about the man
But as a rape victim who's been shamed for years now because of her rape, you're trying to shame me again by asking me this political question.
You've repeated that again.
I think it's offensive. As a woman, I find it offensive. For my political choices, I've endorsed the man that I believe is best for our country. It's not Joe Biden. And you looked at the dueling rallies yesterday in Georgia. Laken Riley's family was with Donald Trump. They weren't with Joe Biden. The same guy yesterday that apologized for calling her killer an illegal, who wasn't illegal. And here you are trying to shame a rape victim. I find it disgusting.
I mean, you keep saying I'm shaming you.
You are. The question, it is.
How is the question asking you about a presidential candidate who's
You're asking a rape victim.
And there's no question about that. And you've courageously talked about that.
Because I've been raped. I think that's disgusting.
No, I'm questioning your political choices because you're supporting
me. You're
someone who's been found liable for rape. Actually, I'm not trying to shame you.
You are. That's exactly what you're doing.
You're not answering the question.
I think it's disgusting.
Well, you're welcome to say that, but you also have to answer the question. Why are you supporting someone who's been found liable for rape?
I just answered your question.
What is the answer?
He was not found guilty in a criminal court of law. It was sexual abuse. It wasn't actually rape, by the way. And E. Jean Carroll joked about all the money she's going to get and made a mockery out of this case. And I think that's offensive. There's a reason why women don't come forward. And when you have someone who says that they're raped and they make a mockery out of this civil court judgment, it's offensive to other women. It makes it harder for other women to come forward when another woman has made a mockery of it.
You said women don't come forward because they are afraid. They are afraid because
they're judged and shamed by those who you're trying to shame me this morning.
They are afraid to come forward, as you said, because they are defamed by those who commit the rape. That's what Donald Trump has been found guilty of doing.
He defended himself over that and denies that it ever happened, but he was not found guilty in a criminal court of law.
If you go look at everything Trump has said and everything that the deranged lunatic accusing him or who has been accusing him of rape, there's no evidence of them ever knowing each other. There's no evidence that they ever spent time together. There's no evidence of anything. And furthermore, she was on a magazine cover talking about the dress that she wore when the scenario happened. The dress wasn't even made for like 20 more years. Regardless of the time frame, the dress was never even available at that point in time. So she is a deranged lunatic, and her cat's name is Vagina. Believe it's Vagina. But anyway, she's a deranged person, and the way she's talked about the money she's going to get, the way she's talked about everything involving the case, she needs to be put in the brig. Oh, and furthermore, where she said it happened was a place right across the street from one of Trump's buildings. Trump, even at the time, was one of the most famous people in the world. Do you think people wouldn't have seen him? You think there would be just a shred of evidence? Well, I guess you don't need that, because if you don't get the guilty verdict for our president, in a rape charge or a rape trial, well, guess what? You can get the defamation because you can find a way that Donald Trump defamed her. But George Snuffleupagus will never get charged with defamation. You know why? Because his name is not Donald Trump. Yeah. So Trump suing ABC News and George Snuffleupagus Stephanopoulos for defamation. Here's what to know about his claim. Now, we're going to be... it should be some good comedy here. Because guess what? CBS... Former President Donald Trump on Monday sued ABC News, and host George Stephanopoulos, claiming comments made by yada yada dumbass during a recent interview were defamatory. In the interview, Stephanopoulos asked Rep. Nancy Mace, a South Carolina Republican, about the two juries that awarded the writer E. Jean Carroll a combined $88.3 million in damages, stemming from her claim that Trump sexually abused her decades ago and committed defamation in denying the attack. This is banana republic stuff here. Not found guilty of the act, but you could still be found guilty for denying the attack. Folks, just, when you walk outside tomorrow, don't do anything wrong. Don't cuss anyone out. Don't flip anyone off. Don't put something in your pocket while you're at the grocery store because your hands are full, you got to use the bathroom, and forget to pay because, man, if you ever do anything wrong, they will find it out. And if you deny doing it or meaning to do it, there was no intent, which is a massive part of the discovery and ruling in cases, you're going to get found for making defamatory remarks. So, Trump is alleging that Stephanopoulos was acting with malice or with a reckless disregard for the truth, and claims that Snuffleupagus knows that these statements are patently and demonstrably false. In order to prove defamation of a public figure, which is tough to do, Trump must prove not just that the statement was incorrect, but that Snuffleupagus met the heightened standard of actual malice, showing that he had knowledge the statements were false or acted with reckless disregard of whether they were false or not. Trump has to prove actual malice by clear and convincing evidence. He has to show that he harmed his reputation as well. I mean, couldn't we claim that about the entire Russiagate hoax? Couldn't we claim that about quite literally everything they've accused him of over the years? How does it make any sense at all that we haven't seen any accountability for the known lies by the media? What about the COVID vaccine? We're streaming on YouTube too, so when we have this interview Friday, which I need to let you guys know, I need to announce that here again in just a moment. But what about the COVID vaccine? Safe and effective without evidence. Or the lies and defamation of anybody, even medical professionals, like our guest Friday, Dr. Robert Malone, who will be on the show at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. What about the defamation and slander that they committed on professionals who had data, who had information? Dr. Robert Malone, again, is coming on the show Friday. And he quite literally created the technology in the mRNA vaccine, or the mRNA technology that is in the COVID vaccine. So we haven't seen any accountability there either. Will we ever? Well, we might. But you remember that the COVID vaccine or the COVID documents weren't supposed to ever get released, at least for 70 years. Thank God for the Freedom of Information Act and patriots in the government that thankfully we still have some. So on we move. Now we've covered a litany of discouraging and disturbing things. I think, it's pretty much par for the course in today's news cycle. But we talked about the transgender woman, and this is a difficult thing to decipher because is it a transgender man or a transgender woman? What does that mean? Is it a man that's a woman now? Or is it a woman that's a man? It was a mainstream news article, so we have to assume it's a man, transgender woman. But I think I speak for the majority when I say it's very difficult to figure out what the hell they're saying and what the sex and gender of that person is. But what we do know is that cartel-affiliated Venezuelan murdered in cold blood a transgender person. And this happened in February. This very person was let go, then caught again with a firearm, let go, illegally had a firearm. Now they can have firearms. So then got caught driving without a license. Got let go by the district attorney. No charges brought. So remember, cartel affiliated Venezuelan, here illegally. Remember that distinction. More cartel related news. This is in Texas. And MJ Truth Ultra, yet again, always dropping valuable information, red pills. Oh man, and he's been on fire lately, as a matter of fact, and he is an anon. So he's been in this fight for a long time. Well, namely, that's why he has a massive following. If none of you all follow him, go follow him. So, Texas. Making sure we're not freezing up again. Looks like we are. A little. Let me fix this. I don't want you all to be experiencing a lag-filled stream. It's only X too. I don't understand. We got to stop that then, I guess. I promise that you guys will not have to deal with that continually. I'm going to figure this out after the stream ends tonight because it's aggravating. So a top fugitive and leader of a Colombian criminal gang was captured in Texas after entering the U.S. illegally as a political refugee. So you ask, what does that mean? Political refugee. Huh. Political refugee. Let's look it up. Let's see what the mainstream is calling a political refugee now. Let's just see. What is we don't want to go to Legal Match. Actually, we'll contrast what Legal Match says and what, say, New York Times says. What is a political asylum versus refugee? So we're looking here. Political refugee. So are they muddying the water here? Political asylum is a status which may be sought by individuals who are already this zoomed in here. Who are already located in the United States and who are afraid of being persecuted in their home country. Refugee immigration status is for individuals who want to come to the United States out of fear of Okay. So we got legal matches. We're going to say that that is the legal term. Now let's see what the spin cycle does to this term. Amnesty.org. We've got to have mainstream article here. This is the first time I haven't gotten CNN, MSNBC, NBC, CNN, MSNBC for the first 8 pages. And I use DuckDuckGo, which is no better. Yeah, they are not advertising what that means. We got a video here, Mark Morgan, but this is the national desk, so we'll see. It's going to be, I'll have to figure out, because it's on Rumble, so it'll be, hopefully, a little bit more either conservative or fair on the reporting and the coverage. Adurbis Perella was on Interpol's top 10 most wanted list. How many of these people are in the country? He has ties to 4 murders, drug trafficking, as well as other crimes in Colombia. He entered the U.S. illegally as a political refugee. So it's a bullshit term that is just the spin cycle at work. A political refugee is what he would call himself, and it's the way the media would frame it. So poor, pitiful Adurbis, murdering psychopath. Well, I wonder what drugs he brought into the country, or that if he was involved in bringing drugs into America. And I would be curious with how many people by which were killed by the drugs he brought in, or could have potentially been involved in trafficking into the United States. He and other gang members were using a migrant shelter in Texas for their operations. A migrant shelter. See, what do you do when you're Texas? When you don't have the ability to arrest, detain, repatriate, when you don't have the ability to send them back to their home country. Because if this political refugee term is added to the immigration vernacular, we're going to be in trouble. Which they're already changing illegal alien and illegal, just the blanket term illegal. They're already, changing the narrative on that, considering Joe Biden apologized to Laken Riley's murderer after he called her Lincoln Riley at the State of the Union. Can you imagine? So they're going to we'll probably start hearing political refugee. Where the hell are they? Are they political refugees from El Salvador? Because persecution, yeah, he's persecuting criminals. Believe it or not. I know that sounds crazy to you guys, but they could apply that term to anything. So we'll go to Rumble here. Hey, and guys, we're going to go to Rumble just so that we can support MJ. I need to follow him. We can support MJ on here on Rumble. Like I said, he's tremendous. I'm on Rumble. We were streaming on Rumble and Kick. We're currently still streaming on, obviously, X and YouTube. But I'm on Rumble too, so I'm posting all the content that I make that you guys see on Rumble, YouTube, and X. So X, Rumble, YouTube, all those platforms have all the same content. But if you guys could help and follow my Rumble, you can it's just my name. My @ on X, @Kalen Archer is my name on here. Look, you guys, I bet you can't believe this. How much money I've made on Rumble. We're rolling in it. But I just have started getting more consistent on Rumble, and then obviously YouTube. It's a process, which doesn't have to necessarily grow ridiculously fast. I'm going to continue to do it, and if you guys ever get a chance to go support my channel on Rumble and on YouTube, I would be forever grateful. I would love to end up doing this full time, and I will be doing it until that day. So, top fugitive and leaders of a Colombian gang in the U.S. And guess what? You better not, you sick, racist, white supremacist, transphobe, homophobe, colonizer. You better not call them illegals. Just Jan Jeffcoat. What a name. Make sure I'm gonna get Make sure you guys are getting audio. Wonder why Rumble's not playing the audio. I didn't hear it.
I still get judged for it today.
I'm asking you a very simple question.
And I answered it. You're shaming me for my political choices.
I'm asking you a question about why you endorse someone who's been found liable for rape. Just
I still get judged for it today.
I'm asking you a very simple question.
Huh. I wonder why Rumble is not playing. See if the video or the audio works here on X.
One of the world's most wanted fugitives and reportedly one of the top leaders of a Colombian criminal gang was captured near San Antonio, Texas, after a sweeping investigation that involved multiple law enforcement. 29-year-old Adrbis Perea was on Interpol's top 10 most wanted, tied to at least 4 murders, drug trafficking, and with warrants out of Bogota, Colombia. Law enforcement say he crossed the border on January 2nd and requested political asylum on January 7th from Venezuela. He was also allowed into this country and released, but investigators reportedly discovered on January 27th he and his gang members were using a migrant shelter in Texas, of all places, for their operations. That's when the FBI and Homeland Security began their intense search for him. And joining us now to discuss, former Acting Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection and fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Mark Morgan. Good to see you, sir. Agents reportedly went to an address in Denver, I was reading, where they said this guy had listed his address before surveilling him in Texas and then arresting him last week while he was just walking down the street in New Braunfels, Texas. The fact, though, Mark, that he was allowed in this country where authorities say he was operating his drug trafficking operation is outrageous. What did you make of this?
It is outrageous, Jan, and this goes to the heart of one of the many issues you and I talked about multiple times, and that's about vetting. The reality is every time Secretary Mayorkas or anybody from this administration tells the American people that we properly vet everyone before we release them is just a lie. They're provided with a false sense of security that doesn't exist. The reality is there's many countries that illegal aliens are coming to our country from that we have zero diplomatic relationships with, and we're getting nothing with respect to their criminal history. There are other countries that, although we do have relationships with, their databases and ability to provide us with detailed information is just archaic. It's not there. In addition to that, the Border Patrol's mission has fundamentally changed from a law enforcement national security mission to one of a processing enterprise. The reality is every single day, this administration is releasing people that we know nothing about, and we know it before we're releasing them. In the past 36 months, ICE has arrested almost 200,000 criminal illegal aliens in the United States. This is happening every single day because this administration reenacted and reinstituted catch and release.
And this is one of the many examples officials in Texas say is the reason they need Senate Bill 4, which simply would make illegal immigration a state crime. That way, this guy would not be able to fight extradition or the many other ways he can use the current American system, despite the fact that he's not in this country legally. How has the administration made it harder, Mark, to deport illegal immigrants?
First of all, Janet, if I can, you just summarized the Texas border bill perfectly. This is about detention and removing individuals that came here illegally.
Yep. Another open and shut case of criminal networks, cartels, and human child drug trafficking, illegal aliens in the country. And this is not by accident. If you look at what really happens when a country goes through a mass migration, what they would call it, what people who have a brain call it, is an invasion. When you look at it and you are observing it from the lens of what it does to an economy, what it does to a country's infrastructure, when a country cannot service the influx, which America, the cities that these people are going to, sanctuary cities, even non-sanctuary cities that aren't crumbling to the ground already, what they're doing is effectively and intentionally destabilizing that area and the country as a whole. When you have massive amounts of crime, massive surges in crime, when you have money that is not there to begin with, when we have trillions and trillions of dollars in debt and a crumbling health infrastructure, healthcare system, what happens is you completely shut the country down. Its economy tanks. You see so many other examples of what is happening around the world. We saw what happened in Europe when they had a mass migration. Not only do people get killed, innocent people, not only do women and children have unthinkable things happen to them, but the world loses faith in you. And the American people and the residents of that country lose faith in their government. What's happening around the world already in the U.S. is that they're abandoning the dollar. We're making enemies out of people all over the world who, one, don't respect us, and two, can't have faith in us and rely on us as the most powerful country in the world that really and truly is not anymore. It's China. And Russia's economy is growing so quickly and booming, quite frankly. The world is moving away from the U.S., at least the world that the West is literally crumbling as we speak. So, criminal gangs, cartels are being let into this country and it is not by accident. Now I have something that will serve us as our finale for tonight's show, and leave it to the one and only Tucker Carlson. And I actually just got the notification for this. You know, we have to watch Tucker when he posts something, so. Joe Biden, or actually, Tucker touches on the issue with Haiti and what's going on in Haiti. What's gone on in Haiti is it has been a hub, quite literally the hub for the deep state and sick, vile, depraved individuals. It's been a human and child trafficking hub. Essentially, it's just a place with an inventory for these people that have no regard for human life and the greater good of human people. It's all about money, profits, and effectively serving for their vile intentions. And you have to imagine how profitable the human and child trafficking industry is, where, one, people are sick, two, serves as we saw with Epstein, a great asset in a blackmail operation. So what we'll do, we'll watch Tucker's clip here, which I'm sure all of us, including myself, are extremely interested in watching, but we'll watch actually a clip of mine, because, you know, Tucker and I were pretty similar in stature and fame, popularity. We'll watch a clip that I have from a movie. If you're not familiar, we actually do a segment in each show, typically, whether it's the finale or at some point in the middle. We watch a clip from the movie, unbelievably well put together, well researched, movie called The Fall of the Cabal. This movie was made by a woman who was once liberal, who was planning on voting for Hillary Clinton. I can't remember if she did or she was going to, and then the WikiLeaks emails came out. Fairly certain she did not, because thankfully, like most of us, we learned about WikiLeaks and the emails that they tried to destroy, and also with Julian Assange, and, well, Edward Snowden and Julian Assange effectively woke the world up to the depravity and the corruption in our government and the world. She made a movie called The Fall of the Cabal, which is, it touches on almost everything that you want it to. It's made, it was 7 years ago now, this movie was made. She, like many others who tried to speak the truth, prior to the awakening in the world. Nowadays, you see people speaking truth, they don't necessarily die every time. You know, a lot of them commit suicide, unfortunately. I bet you 0.00001% of the people on the Clinton body count list and effectively enemies of the deep state, I bet you 0.0001% of them committed suicide. Quite frankly, it's really hard to hang yourself and then shoot yourself with a shotgun in the chest. And then the shotgun be like 20 feet away. And it's really ironic how many people die in airplane accidents, like right after they spoke out about human trafficking and, quite frankly, satanic and occult practices in these circles. And these circles are always filled with highly elite people. So, if you're new to the show, tonight is a shorter show. We've got a big time conversation and interview coming up this Friday. I'm preparing for it daily. Dr. Robert Malone, the man who created the mRNA technology that is now found in the vaccines, he's been staunch opposition for the establishment. We've got that coming up Friday. Tonight, shorter stream, but I'd be remiss if I didn't cover the news for you all today. And so we'll watch this clip by Tucker Carlson. We'll watch the Fall of the Cabal clip that, you know, we typically try to do each Archer angle. And yeah, we'll be back soon.
For quite some time now, at least 100 years, depending on how you count. It's been the poorest nation in the hemisphere. But there have been periods of relative brightness in Haiti. Today is not one of them. That country is in what appears to be total collapse, with no governing authority apart from roving bands of armed young men. Gangs have seized the country effectively. The prime minister has resigned. It's hard to know exactly what's going on in Haiti because you really can't go there right now. But the man who seems to be at least near the center of all of this is called Barbecue. And he's been giving speeches like this to huge crowds in Port-au-Prince. Watch.
Il y a toujours besoin de nous pour nous sortir pour nous rouler caoutchouc pour nous. Il y a besoin de nous pour nous faire manifestation, casser, briser pour nous. C'est révolution mentale ça. Avant nous arriver sur révolution ensemble, qui est force révolutionnaire. J'ai n'a pas mis à des moyens tout à fait. Qui vient faire que nous faire nous passer pour bandits. Il est pour nous faire la différence entre gang, bandits, à moun qui fait révolution.
So there's clearly a lot going on here. It's hard to understand exactly what all of it means, but one thing Americans should keep in mind is there could be a massive, what we refer to as a refugee crisis very soon, where a lot of the people you just saw in that video wind up in boats headed for Florida. So this does affect us, and of course, this is our hemisphere, which we supposedly oversee, make calmer, more prosperous, and stable. So why haven't the people in charge done that after all these years and a number of military interventions into Haiti by the U.S. government? And where are the billions of dollars we were told the Clinton family, through the Clinton Foundation, was sending to Haiti? Others have asked this question. Donald Trump, for example, back in 2016 at a presidential debate. Watch.
And you take a look at the people of Haiti. I was at a little Haiti the other day in Florida, and I want to tell you, they hate the Clintons, because what's happened in Haiti with the Clinton Foundation is a disgrace. And you know it, and they know it, and everybody knows it.
So what is the answer to that question? Where did all that money go? And why isn't the Biden administration?
So I'll interject here for just a moment. Just got a notification from YouTube. So this is content Tucker Carlson releases. No copyrights or anything like that. I just got a notification from YouTube that, heads up, we've detected video in your stream belonging to someone else. Your stream may be temporarily blocked. It's funny, the contrast between X as a platform and YouTube. And I understand copyright. I understand, not wanting people to rip off other people's material. So hopefully we fix this with having the cam. I had to go check on my daughter anyway. But yeah, quite interesting.
Helping in any way? And what are they doing to prepare for what will quite obviously be a mass emigration of people from Haiti to the state of Florida? So to answer these and maybe some other questions, we go now to Laurent Lamothe, who is the former Prime Minister of Haiti, and we're honored to have him. Now, Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much for coming on. This is hard for people who don't speak Creole or who follow Haiti to really understand, but can you give us just a quick overview for Americans of what you think is happening in Haiti right now?
Well, thank you for having me, Tucker.
Of course.
It's a great pleasure to be here and, to give my take as to what's happening in my beloved Haiti. Haiti was not always under the rule of gangs. If you go back a few years under the dictatorship of Duvalier, there was, Haiti had other problems, but not gang-related problems. Then when at the fall of Duvalier, and for you to understand, under the Duvalier government, there was, the security forces had about 320,000 security officials. You had paramilitary, and then you had military, and then you had police. when they fell, the military took over in 1986. From 1986 to 1990, they had a success, 4 different military governments, and there was absolutely no gangs. But there was, military rule. In 1991, President Jean-Bertrand Aristide came to power in an election, and he had a deep distrust for the military and also for private sector, for investors. So basically, he started introducing a culture of what was called at the time popular bases. And after 7 months, he was toppled by the military. There was 3 years of military rule, and then in 1994, Aristide was restored to Haiti by the Clinton administration at the time, and Haiti basically went from the 320,000 security official to basically 0, and the army at the time was disbanded. The police was inexistent. So the international forces had to come in through the Marines came in for a short period of time, and then the UN came in thereafter. And that lasted up until, right before 2000. And Aristide left, and Préval came in, and Aristide came back from 2000 to 2004. And when he was ousted for a second time in 2004, then there was complete breakdown of law and order, because at the time, the gangs, what was called at the time chimeras, were very strong. And then they launched what's called Operation Baghdad. And basically what that operation was, it was basically gang warfare, gang attacking institutions, attacking the remnants of the police, etc. But the police was inexistent and it was very weak. So basically, and that was the case in 2004. In 2004, that triggered what we all knew as the UN forces MINUSTA came into Haiti from 2004 to 2017 and spent $13 billion at $1 billion a year for that force, which was about 7,000 soldiers and 2,000 police. But, and during that time, essentially, there was relative calm. There was, very little gang activity because they were scared of the international force. But that force had a lot of issues. They never really trained the after UN.
Yes.
So there was no army trained, the police that was trained was still very weak because it's a civilian force. Haiti today is the only country in the Western Hemisphere outside of Costa Rica that has no military, and that has the biggest gang activity after El Salvador. So, and this is because a lot of international community, friends of Haiti, or so-called friends of Haiti, say that Haiti does not need a military, does not need a strong police force. And this is what happens today. So that created a void, and that created the situation where we have today, where that void is filled by gangs, armed groups all over, the popular neighborhoods, huge neighborhoods of 500,000 people, 200,000 people, and they're ruled by gangs. So it complicates the situation tremendously. And law and order is very difficult if you don't have the police officers, if you don't have soldiers, if you don't have security personnel to keep the peace, essentially. And that's why right now it takes us to today. So during my time when I was prime minister, from 2012 to 2014, basically saw the relative period of renewal. We had foreign direct investment come. We had an economy was growing at 4.8%. We had 0 kidnappings. We had a situation where there was absolutely no gangs. I didn't have that gang problem. But when the UN, because we took it very seriously, we really, reinforced the police, we trained them, we worked very closely with the US in order to have a force that would keep the peace and keep the security. And very soon after I left, in 2014, 2017 now, the UN mandate expired. There was a new government of President Jovenel Moïse, and the UN left. And then there was an activity, the gang activity, slowly started because the opposition to President Moïse wanted to oust him. And so basically that continued slowly, and it became unmanageable to a point where the politicians at the time that wanted to oust President Moïse from power were using some of those gangs in order to do so. And the gangs themselves, they say it openly. Haiti is probably the only country in the world where gangs are on Facebook every day doing Facebook Live. They have press conference. They have, it becomes like an everyday event. So law and order needs to be restored in Haiti, as there is a huge security void and breakdown. But only Haitians can do it by having the tools and the means to do so, which is reinstalling the Haitian army, of course training them, having a professional army to avoid coups, etc. But having a strong police is not enough, and that's what the international community has been pushing: only a police and no military. Yet every time there is a problem, there is a foreign military that's called to come and help.
Tell us about Barbecue, who's getting a lot of attention on social media. Who is he? Why is he called?
So Barbecue is effectively, after the president or the leader of Haiti stepped down, Barbecue is the man effectively running the country. And this is what the reports have been. I think it's worth noting from the video and then from Tucker's post, Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau have in effect been running domestic politics and policies in Haiti for the past few years. The result is chaos and cannibalism. And what's the difference really, aside from the cannibalism, in our own country? Just imagine, so Trump, whatever his decision-making process was during the George Floyd, the BLM riots, what his rationale was, we aren't necessarily sure, because, he does really believe in free speech. You could see it. He speaks pretty freely himself. So the protests, it was not necessarily what we would call a protest. Those were not the protests protected by the Constitution. Those were violence. That was effectively, they burnt cities basically to the ground, destroyed all kinds of people's lives and businesses that, especially during COVID, were already almost about to fail. And guess what? Those people had to get an hourly job somewhere. So what we're seeing, imagine if Joe Biden was the president during the George Floyd protests. I think that we could probably, safely say that it could have been a whole lot worse. Because now the defund the police movements and completely demoralized, because we have a president who doesn't speak out against violence against police. We have a president like Barack Obama who, to a large degree, has demonized law enforcement and also clipped their wings, so to speak. We don't want psychopaths in our law enforcement system, obviously. We don't want people who have a badge and a gun who use that to their advantage and it gives them a God complex. We don't want that. But we need a president who does speak out and support law enforcement. We need a strong leader who protects our country's values. With that being said, we don't have that. And I can only imagine what the George Floyd protests would have been like had it not been, or had Joe Biden been our president at the time. So, like you said, this is identical, aside from the cannibalism, to what's going on in America, what's going on in Haiti. So we'll listen to what he says about Barbecue first, and then we'll watch the video.
Barbecue, what's his role in the country?
Is an excerpt from...
So he was a former police officer for a long time. And, I've seen that myself on YouTube, why it was called Barbecue, but he explained it in Creole. It's because his mother had a barbecue shop and was selling barbecue chicken, and then he was, he was helping to sell, and that's how he got the name after the mom's business. So that's why it's called Jimmy Barbecue Sherrif. And essentially, to understand the situation in Haiti right now, you have to understand the misery and poverty level that are in some of the neighborhoods where you showed earlier that he was talking. It's principally a neighborhood called Cité Soleil. It's a slum of about 300,000 to 400,000 people that are living in very abject poverty, that have no hope. They are youths, 15, 17 years old, that cannot go to school, that cannot have a job because there is despair, because people are not thinking about job creation, they're thinking about holding on to power. And that's what the Prime Minister, for example, going back to Prime Minister Henry, rather than reinforcing the police and fighting off the gangs and creating an army, he spent $500 million to pay off a debt to Venezuela, $500 million, that happened 3 weeks ago, to pay off a debt to Venezuela, yet he couldn't come up with enough money to buy trucks for his police officers to go and fight the gangs. So it's to show you the contradiction that happens into Haiti politics. So what happens is when the people saw that they have no outs, and then the gangs coming, they install themselves, right? They take over neighborhoods. They have the weapons, they have the guns, they're strong, and then they have a message. So basically, it's a situation where you have a breakdown completely of security and a despair of the population. So the solution is not only, to come up with guns or to start shooting. The solution, the long-term solution is good old job creation. Come in to invest, allow people to invest in Haiti to create jobs. And we had started.
What he's trying to say is common sense policies. Common sense government, common sense law enforcement. When you have the globalists effectively running your country, when you have people like Joe Biden, and we can hardly say Joe Biden is running our country, but when you have people like Joe Biden who do nothing but offer the globalists and the deep state and the shadow government and the global government pushing towards globalism and authoritarianism, this happens. And if you allow these people to get elected, and it's hard to not allow them to get elected when you have the CIA and the American government stirring up controversy in a country similar to ours, where you force a coup d'etat, where a democratically elected election happened, and there is a democratically elected president or prime minister, and you have the CIA come in and overthrow that government effectively, quite literally overthrow that government. And then you institute what we have here, systems that prevent discrimination and systems that prevent election interference and voter fraud and election fraud. Just know if it's coming out of a Democrat's mouth nowadays, the current Democrat Party and people who align themselves with the Democrats, just know when it comes out of their mouth that it is probably the opposite of what they're saying. It's a horrible place to be. When you can say that about an entire political system, political class, you don't have elections anymore. You don't have the voice of the people. You don't have really anything except for an authoritarian state with a police state who does what they want and jails you if you're a dissident. So we see what happened in Haiti, and is happening in Haiti. We see what's happening in the United States. We see what happened in the Middle East when we destabilized the entire Middle East. Through what? Through constant war, through constant occupation and the slaughter of people. and all for the name of that precious oil. We need oil. It needs to be done in a way that doesn't murder millions of people. But this is the MO. Death and slaughter and war is a fantastic business to be in for the people who have exclusive, non-competitive agreements and contracts with the government. So Haiti is a travesty. It's one of the most depraved and disgusting situations and instances that we've ever seen, and the crimes against humanity are immense. There's no accountability for it. We saw the evidence. Hell, I would go so far as to say we didn't even have to have WikiLeaks emails. Now, we did to a degree because that allowed us to see who the Clintons were affiliated with definitively. Those people were arrested. They were known pedophiles who have that on their record. They're in prison. That video we're going to watch here in a second backs up everything he's saying, but more so hones in on the trafficking situation. What you're going to find most shocking is the people in power, like I just said. If they say something, expect the opposite. These people they're psychopaths. They have no qualms with lying and deceiving and effectively brainwashing people. They have no problem with it. It increases their power over time. Deception, that is. So I'll get this pulled up here for y'all. Just be prepared. It's something that if you didn't know this information, you will be very glad you saw this. Because I don't think very many people really know the depth of the Clintons' connections. I'll tell you too, very, very, very few people, and we may have to stream this exclusively on X. I think the movie's so old that we might be able to just watch it and recap it on YouTube as well, but it doesn't really matter. We can watch it here, potentially together. It is a longer movie, so I could probably just get clips together like I've done with the Fall of the Cabal, but I can't think of the name of the documentary. The Clintons. Let's look it up. I got to figure this name out. There's so many documentaries about how they're such great people, when all it takes is just a little bit of time, and you would think the exact opposite. The Clinton Chronicles. It came out in 1994. So this is 30 years old. It's crazy because the corruption that's exposed in that documentary, this goes back in 1994. We're talking about compared to now, not far from the beginning of the Clintons' rise to complete and utter the rise of the Clintons into essentially unlimited wealth, unlimited control, and affiliation with the world's darkest entities and people and organizations. But the information within there, because we have so much information regarding the corruption of the Clintons now and recent times, Benghazi, Haiti, two perfect examples. The stuff they were doing forever ago is just as bad. Bill Clinton's sexual proclivity and his sexual depravity, Hillary's bloodlust, literally. She has been a monster for decades. So I'll get clips together from it. Like I said, it's a long movie. It's extremely enjoyable. I would look it up if I were you and just check it out. But we'll have clips in there, some of the most potent clips. But for now, we're going to check out the Clinton connection in Haiti. because I promise you, this will shock you.
Headed to the southern border of the US in April 2018 was covered by the media big time. According to the official reports, these people came mostly from
It's the wrong one. That one's another one from the same movie, The Fall of the Cabal. That's amazing. Here we go.
Hearts are for girl lovers and the butterfly is for child lovers in general. These pedophile logos will indeed be their downfall. They are in plain sight, for they never thought people would wake up and see. And just like we saw with Amber Alert, it's the organizations that claim to protect children that actually use pedophile logos. For instance, the International Adoption Clinic. New Star Kafala, a Muslim adoption and child advocacy agency. This is the logo for their HOPE program, helping orphans progress emotionally. Then there's the Pacific Crest Trail Association. It changed its logo in July 2017 after the pedophile connection in the capital A was discovered by the public. Now, I'm not saying these organizations are proven pedophile dens. I'm merely pointing out the interesting choice of logo, which of course could be totally based on coincidence. This logo eerily resembles the boy lover symbol. It was used by the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation, set up by the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in honor of his father. This logo was on the 2015-16 annual report. Then there's Alpida, a Canadian refuge charity. Alpida was founded by the Radcliffe Foundation, set up and owned by Frank Giustra. Now, apart from the interesting choice of logo, there are a few things about Mr. Giustra that fascinate me. First of all, he's a major sponsor to the Clinton Foundation. We're talking $100 million and more. He loved going to Haiti with the Clintons. And he founded the Boys Club Network for boys between 12 and 18 seeking connection and mentorship. His co-founder is Jim Crescenzo, a teacher from Vancouver who received an Excellence Award from none other than Justin Trudeau. Now once again, I'm sure this is just coincidence. But what is it that Q keeps saying about coincidence? How many coincidences before mathematically impossible? For someone who claims to be a decent family man, Justin Trudeau sure has some interesting friends. Take Christopher Ingvelson, a Canadian private school teacher, convicted for the possession and distribution of child porn. For many years he was Trudeau's friend and roommate. Then there's his best friend Peter Dalgleish, the world-renowned humanitarian who was caught in the act in Nepal with 2 children aged 12 and 14. He was the founder of Street Kids International and the Trails Youth Initiative program. Now, I'm sure these programs do great things for kids, but why choose pedophile logos? And why are so many set up by registered and convicted pedophiles and sex offenders? I mean, if you're a pedophile, wouldn't it be great to have your own child protection program? To have access to all those lovely children to pick from? Mind you, these children often come from troubled backgrounds. Some have criminal records. Many suffered from neglect and abuse in early childhood. Easy prey, and no concerned, loving parents to protect them. I mean, look at CPS, the Child Protective Services. Exposed in 2007 for legally kidnapping and selling children for adoption out of foster care. The lady who exposed them, Congresswoman Nancy Schaefer, was murdered in 2010. Now back to Trudeau's interesting best friends. Here we have Ben Levin, former Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Education, arrested and convicted in 2013 for making and distributing child pornography. Then there's Jan Gomeshi, the Canadian CBC radio host, arrested and charged in 2015 with 7 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of overcoming resistance by choking. Now, I don't know about this, but if I were Trudeau, I'd be more careful selecting my friends. He is surrounded by registered pedophiles and sex offenders. There's another prominent place where the FBI symbols of pedophilia can be found, in Hollywood. We briefly saw in part 1 that children cartoons contain references to sex and violence. Doesn't that make you wonder who Walt Disney really was? Why are children exposed to Illuminati symbols, such as pyramids and the all-seeing eye, time and again? And why are pedophile logos used for candy and ice cream? Yet another thing that attracts children. The more I dived into this topic, the more I realized to what extent this had actually drenched our society. Top directors such as James Gunn, who openly and proudly tweet about being a pedophile. I guess this is normal in Hollywood?
Now, the last of this covers Mel Gibson, but we need to see the connection, the very obvious connection between the political, the ruling class, and, well, minor attracted persons, as they're now being referred to. Get the Hillary Clinton one queued up and just wait. Insane. No, it is the most insane movie I've ever watched. It's a I've got the video on my and my video was in my highlights. That's strange. We'll just watch this one then. It is the most insane movie I've ever watched.
I won't get the
it's at the top
on
of most informational. And all of this information, it's uncensored, unfiltered. The woman who wrote this, well, the woman who created this documentary.
In 2010, right after the devastating earthquake, 33 children were smuggled out of Haiti. The woman who was arrested, Laura Gaylor Silsby,
Remember
said they
that
were
name?
orphans who were
Look
about
her
to
up.
be adopted
Laura
in the
Gaylor
US.
Silsby.
Upon investigation, however, it turned out most of these children were not orphans. They were
This is
later
Inception.
reunited with their parents. Furthermore, there were no adoption papers to be found. These kids had simply been abducted, stolen from their parents. Who exactly is this Laura Gaylor Silsby? First of all, she was on the board of
This
directors
is
of
crazy.
Alert Sense, the company.
So, I want to make a quick point. Notice how the kids, the Boys and Girls Club or the Boys Club, notice the Amber Alert. Oh, sorry, you're about to learn about the Amber Alert. Notice how all these companies, and I wanted to play the Trudeau one because if you didn't know that one, well, now you do. And I'm thankful I could bring it to you all. Now, the connections that Trudeau had, similar to Hillary, there are a multitude of connections between them and convicted pedophiles and people who were in charge or owned companies that, coincidentally had what the FBI laid out in their documents as pedophile logos and symbols in their branding. And then symbolism will be their downfall. The biggest point to know, symbolism will be their downfall. People are so much more apt and capable of catching it nowadays. So, Amber Alert. This is like, who would have thought? Amber Alert, of all places.
That provides the technology for Amber Alert. Amber Alert is the broadcast emergency response to recover abducted children. Isn't that an interesting paradox? A convicted child trafficker, yes, she was found guilty and convicted, connected to Amber Alert, set up to rescue children? Secondly, this lady is the founder of the Baptist organization New Life Children's Refuge, an orphan rescue mission for Haiti. Sounds to me like she had a ways to smuggle children out of the country real easy. Nice cover. Last but not least, she's a close friend of the Clintons, who immediately paid for a lawyer, Jorge Puello, who himself is a convicted pedophile. He was arrested and convicted for leading an international human trafficking ring involving women and children. All of this came out into the open thanks to WikiLeaks that published the secret emails between the Clintons and Laura Gaylor Silsby. Let's continue with Haiti some more before moving on, shall we? Haiti was put in the limelight once again with the Oxfam scandal. Oxfam, known for its shops throughout the world for empowering women and for fighting poverty, was banned from Haiti following the 2010 earthquake. There were orgies with prostitutes, some of which were underage, in other words, with children. Leaked emails further confirm that $3 million were diverted from Haitian relief funds via the Clinton Foundation to pay for Chelsea's extravagant 2010 wedding. When Trump called Haiti a shithole, the whole world went mad. But he was right. What he referred to was what the so-called non-profit organizations had turned the island into after the earthquake. The Red Cross collected $500 million for Haiti, and all it did was build 6 houses. The Clinton Foundation ruthlessly misappropriated the earthquake donations from international donors and got away with it. Klaus Eberwein, a former government official of Haiti, due to testify about the Clinton corruption, was found dead with a bullet in his head only days before the trial on July 12, 2017. Monica Peterson, the young social anthropologist who went to Haiti to investigate human trafficking on the island and who tweeted some critical thoughts about the Clinton Foundation, was found dead by hanging shortly after in November 2016. Her death was ruled suicide. And when surgeon Dr. Dean Lorek openly vented his disgust about the corruption by the Clinton Foundation that he himself witnessed while trying to save lives on the island, he too ended up dead. In December 2017, he was found on the bathroom floor of his apartment in New York with a knife in his chest. His death too was ruled suicide. But hey, let's not dwell on the many suicides surrounding the Clintons. Let's go back to one of Q's often repeated sentences. Symbolism will be their downfall. In 2007, the FBI released a bulletin with symbols used by pedophiles to identify their sexual preferences and to communicate where to find both each other and their prey.
It's really hard to put in perspective. Most of you in here probably are familiar with the WikiLeaks emails, if not all of you. Most of you know all about this stuff. And if you know someone who doesn't, have the courage to tell them. The most important thing, because it's not about, in the world we're living in currently, why I'm doing this personally is because I care. I care about each and every one of you, but I care about my family. I care about the future of our country and the future of the human race effectively. If the authoritarians are capable of taking full and total control, and America is no longer a representative democracy. Nope, it's not a democracy. Constitutional republic with democratically elected representatives. Representative democracy. So, if you care about other people, your reputation for a moment might get hurt in their eyes, but at the end of the day, what matters? What matters is the awakening of that person. If you truly care about them, you'd be doing them a disservice for not telling them. Even though you're going to feel ostracized, you're going to feel like a crazy person. Most of you in here probably already have gone through that phase, and you probably don't even care anymore. So, that's why I'm doing this. We're going to be back tomorrow night, same time, 7:30. If we can start the stream a little earlier, typically around the 3-hour mark is where, for whatever reason, we start to explode. We had 26,000 live viewers on Sunday. The crux of all of this is, it doesn't matter if we have 700, 300, 50, or 150,000. I'm going to continue to do the Archer angle every day, barring extenuating circumstances where I just can't. We're going to continue to spread the truth. We're going to continue to cover the news the media will not touch. We're going to cover everything we can every single night. The main thing is that we have to be vigilant. We have to stay vigilant. We have to do as much as we can to take our country back come November. So awareness right now is key. When we watch videos like that with Hillary Clinton and Justin Trudeau and all of these organizations that are designed to protect kids, at least in the public eye, your kid goes to the boys club, never comes home. They're acting like it's a mess that we have to do something to clean up. We are all in this together. As we grow the account here, as we grow on YouTube, as we grow on Kick, Rumble, TikTok, we're on all of it. As we grow, the more vigilant, the more capable I am of putting more time in to doing this, putting content out, traveling, meeting people, doing as much as I possibly can. I am a Christian, and I feel in the world we live in today, I feel like one, it's something I've been called to do. But two, as a Christian, I feel like it is our job not only to bring people to Christ, but to try to do as much as we can to save people, not from immediate death, which is possible, but to save them from ignorance and being taken control of in a world that is literally demonizing Christianity, demonizing white people. We have to be extremely vigilant. So thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you got something out of the show tonight. I'm sure there were maybe a couple things that were beneficial to hear. We're going to be back tomorrow, same time, unless we can get on earlier. Like I said, 3 hours is for whatever reason like the sweet spot where it's a J-shaped curve from then. But we'll have a bunch of crazy stories to cover. We'll have another crazy finale tomorrow. Remember, this Friday, March 22nd, 2 p.m., we have Dr. Robert Malone coming on the show for an exclusive interview. It's going to be earth-shattering. I can't wait. Turn your post notifications on. Do something so that you can be here at 2. I will be starting the stream early so that we can get as many people in here as possible, which I'm sure we'll have a good audience for him, and I'll be producing videos following it. The truth is what matters. We're going to continue to spread it. I look forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow night. And, yeah, have a good night. See y'all.